Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, listeners of CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook.
So it begins again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 5, Episode 214.
In this episode, Mothman's Beans, Zombie Apocalypse Manual, and FBI Gold Snatchers.
Yeah. Gentle fade out.
Oh.
Okay, anyway, welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. If this is your very first time tuning in, we're glad you're here. And if you're a repeat offender, welcome. Glad to see you again. Yeah. What? Why are you looking at me like that for?
Oh, no reason.
What? Okay, so anyway, this particular podcast is one that's devoted to the weird stuff, the paranormal stuff, the strange stuff, the spooky stuff, the funny stuff, all that kind of stuff related to Fortean or Fortiana or however you pronounce that. We still don't really know. It's not really a definitive thing. But anyway, we find stuff that we think to be, interesting, and we like to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And back before the days where we all had to stay at home and watch TikTok, we used to travel, take adventures.
Can't wait for that to start up again.
Yeah. Might happen again soon. Anyway, I was going to go down the road with that, but I'm not going to because that might be giving away stuff.
Oh.
Anyway, I tell you, so we got the great white buffalo, which was our travel beast, right? And then later on, we got the albino rhino, which is our current travel beast, right?
Yes.
Our adventure beast. And, people named it, and that's a winner, got a prize, and that's why we call it the albino rhino. So we've been working on it to try to get it to where it's more of a utilitarian investigation mobile. Much like the Mystery Machine, but badass.
Yeah.
Badass, right? So I've been kind of working on it and kind of getting things into a place where we're about ready to take a test run, if you will, a shakedown cruise, if you were, ever in the Navy.
Yeah.
Shakedown cruises, you'd fix stuff up, make repairs, and then take it out and see if it holds up. But anyway, we'll give you a little heads up on what we're going to do and how we're going to do that and where we're going to go. And hopefully it's a place that has this magical stuff called cell phone service where we can probably do some lives and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And as we all know, nothing ever goes to plan.
No.
At least with us anyway. So, okay. So anyway, here's the deal. We have a podcast that we like to do and we talk to you guys and we'd like it if you'd like to talk to us.
Yes.
So if you have something you want to share, history, story, something you'd like to talk about, we have a phone number for you.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yes. You can call and leave us a voicemail.
Yes.
And, if you got something to share, we'll be more than happy to share it. If you don't have anything to share, you just want to tell us something, some words of encouragement or something like that, you could do that too.
Cool. Yeah.
You can also do that on Facebook. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. If you search CreepGeeks, altogether no spaces, right? You'll find it.
You'll find both of them. So
yes.
The Facebook page is where we release big announcements as far as the podcast is concerned, as well as new episodes. The group, we'd really encourage everybody to join. We share funny stuff. We also share interesting stuff that we come across. We also take suggestions and show ideas in the group.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there you go. That's good stuff. And also, all the show notes and everything we talk about are going to be on our website. If you go to creepgeeks.com, you'll find the latest episode information about the podcast episode that you're listening to or have listened to, and links to ones from the past.
Yeah.
And all the links. So if you're like, man, I'd really like to see that, and you can click on it, it'll take you there. And there's also links to things like our Amazon page. We have a page where we sell stuff.
Yeah.
And by sell stuff, it's not really us actually selling it. We just basically put it there as stuff that we've talked about in the past. And, hey, if you want to buy it, great. If you do, they give us a little kickback. Doesn't change the price at all. Helps us put coffee and gas in the Albino Rhino.
Yeah.
Yep. More like coffee and us and then gas in the Albino Rhino. Just saying. So, it's stuff like that we do. Because we like to do it. Now, one of the things that we do like to do when we start our podcast off is before we move into the meat and potatoes of such, we talk about things like the Fortean term of the day or Fortean term of the day.
Yeah. You know what? I just want to interject right there. I think the reason we just do not pronounce it correctly or change our pronunciation every single episode is because of the variety of shows we watch. Whether we're listening to like an old Coast to Coast or watching a new TV show. Like last night, they were saying 40-an.
Yeah.
And I'm used to 14.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we keep messing it up.
Yeah, well, I just thought it was funny. But yeah, nobody says it right. It's okay, though.
Yeah.
It's all things paranormal, all things weird, all things outside of the norm, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you want to do the 14 term of the day?
Okay, so the 14 term of the day, and this is probably not necessarily a term per se, but it is something related. It's called Stickman Cam.
Yeah.
And, Stickman camera. If you've ever seen the skeletal figures jumping around on people's shoulders and stuff, the little multicolored lines connected to dots, and people are like, there he is right there. You know what I mean? Have you ever seen a little,
yeah.
We'll have like a low resolution image of the person standing there in a little thing hopping around?
Yeah.
Well, the nickname for that is Stickman Cam. And what it is, you use a Microsoft Xbox Connect 3D mapping camera, right? And some software and stuff like that, and it sends out like a kabillion laser lights, and then it basically is supposed to detect the stuff that can't be seen.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. And see, I don't know if it's magic or witchcraft or just whatever. Nobody can really prove this is real or not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things, like all things when it comes to the paranormal, the equipment that you use or utilize to try to help investigations and things like that, to be able to gather some evidence that the stuff you're looking at is indeed paranormal, all is from places that you wouldn't think are necessarily purpose-driven for paranormal.
Yeah, everything has this.
It's been repurposed.
Yeah, it's repurposed. It's funny. It's very almost slapdash steampunk,
Yeah, it's like if you were trying to be a garage inventor and you're like, I'm going to put all this together and this is what I'm going to do because, it's just weird, and sometimes you see different versions of equipment. If you ever gone out and did any kind of like paranormal investigation on your own, you may see somebody show up and they'll have like your standard audio recorder, which is exactly that. It's there to record audio, and you might see some weird concoction of a device all put together with blinking lights and glue sticks and strange crap like that. And so, to hunt and detect ghosts. My favorite is stuff made out of PVC plumbing. It's been all put together and painted with like Rust-Oleum crinkle black or something like that.
Yes, but don't
you
have
LED lights and junk?
A YouTube channel where you have repurposed stuff not for paranormal using PVC?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just that if you're going expecting like Ghostbusters with the proton packs and all that stuff where it looks kind of cool, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. But I mean, we do know some, I guess they're called basement inventors or garage
scientists.
Garage scientists who do some great
pretty
work.
Cool stuff. And they're using 3D printers and things like that. But the Stickman Cam effectively is a repurposed Xbox 360 or Xbox Connect series sensor cam. Because it does more than one thing. I mean, it actually has a camera, and it actually has like mapping software. It has an accelerometer and a GPS and all that stuff built into it, and it's there for like 3D mapping, Yeah. But if you slap a tablet with it and its own little power supply, and you get that thing out there, you too can have a skeletal 3D type figure jumping around in the ether, and you're going, look at that, there he is. That's the ghost. So
I want to take it out into the field.
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So pretty much what it is the SLS camera, which is what people are calling it aside from Stickcam. It's like a structured laser / structured light system camera. I've heard it referred to a couple different ways, and it uses 3D mapping, right, to give you that figure. Now, just fun fact for us, I'm making ours because you can do that. So instead of spending like $400 and something, we're going to spend about $100 or so and make our own little Stickman Cam.
Cool.
And I got it all set up the other night and hooked up and got the software figured out and got it all installed on Windows 10 because some people say you can't do it anyway. Got it all worked out the bugs and stuff. And as soon as I had it going and was actually looking at how I was going to customize or configure the software for our use, there was a little freaking leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
What did I say? A leprechaun dancing around on my shoulder. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And so I'm looking at it.
Yeah. And
I'm thinking, okay, it's probably just me. You know, maybe it's got a weird reading. Maybe this thing has to be calibrated because I'm not an expert in this. And I, waved my arms around, did all that stuff and realized, okay, well, it's not me because it's staying where it is and it was doing its own thing. And I'm like, well, that's weird. So then my next thought was, I must screen capture my screen on my laptop so that I can show Omi later. This is like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm up here being a mad scientist in our office doing this thing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there going, okay, is it function print screen? I'm trying to remember which one it is.
Yeah.
Because, our laptop, and it's function print screen.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. And then I'm like, well, I hope I got that. I'm like, I wonder, how long is it going to take me to open up Microsoft Paint so I can paste it and see. So anyway, I did it, and then I'm like, well, let me grab my cell phone, and I'll just take a picture of the screen, all nonchalant, because this thing is behind me, and I haven't turned to look in the direction where this thing is.
Yeah.
And so I snuck the phone over. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take a little picture. And then this thing started dancing around all crazy, all agitated, and then was gone.
Oh, that is creepy.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, so I got no interaction at all. It was like once I made it aware or whatever, or I became aware and voiced that I was aware that this thing was jumping around.
Yeah.
Is when it disappeared.
That is creepy.
Yeah. It was that point. I'm like, all right, I'm done. That's it. It creeped me out a little bit. And I'm like, and we have a rule. We don't do stuff in the house.
Yeah.
We try not to bring like haunted objects in the house. We try not to do any of that stuff in the house where we stay. Cause who wants that? I mean, I don't want to get, woken up by some weirdness.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. 14 term of the day is Stickman Cam, aka SLS Cam, structured light system camera, 3D mapping camera, whatever, ghost hunting, skeletal figure machine, whatever you want to call it. We're going to make one. If you want videos on how to do this yourself or how we've done it, let us know.
Yeah.
I can document it, but I'm just gathering stuff right now. It's not that it's hard to do. It's just that getting some of this stuff is becoming problematic because, as you know, they don't make the Xbox 360 sensor anymore, and Microsoft does not technically support it anymore. So there you go. The upgraded version is ridiculously expensive.
True.
And not even worth getting. So, so if you want to do a Stickman Cam sort of set up for less than $100 and you want to see how we do it once we get all the bugs worked out, let us know.
Yeah, reach out to us on Facebook or contact@creepgeeks.com.
Yeah. Or call the phone number,
oh, yeah.
575-208-4025.
Yeah.
There you go. So occasionally we get listener comments. People listen to the podcast and they send us emails and such, as we've been basically talking about off and on through the beginning part of the podcast where we're begging for people to call. Right? And this is from Bobby B., longtime listener, friend of the show, good all-around kind of guy.
Remote, like, reporter.
Yeah, he's our remote roving robot reporter. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he basically sent us an article, but he basically, said, hey, so what he said was, I know it clobbered you guys' schedule last summer.
Yeah.
B. And there was a link. So you know what I did?
Click the link.
I saved the email, forgot all about it for a day, and then went back and read it. Because you know how you do a little star thing? Like, okay, this is important, but then you get busy with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the title, or the article beginning goes, even professional ghost hunters say that the past year has sucked. And I'm like, well, yeah. Because this is something that we've been talking about.
Yeah. And I'm starting to see that that's not necessarily true. Yes, it's true in some instances, but there are people who have been doing very well because of last year. So, I don't know.
You know, you didn't even give me a chance to say why it sucked before you started trying to fight.
Okay.
Now I got to click the link.
Okay. Well, the link basically says, the spirit world doesn't have to worry about COVID. The living do, and we really had to alter the way we do things to comply. And the link goes into talking about Kristen Lee. She owns a rental property in Bel Air, Ohio, a sleepy 4,000-person town that rests gently against the bank of the Ohio River. For several months last year, the state's coronavirus-related restrictions meant that she had to temporarily close the century-old Bel Air house. When Ohio revised its stay-at-home order in early May, she was given the green light to reopen. She added a set of COVID-19 guidelines to the historic home's already lengthy list of rules and regulations. Overnight visitors were asked to bring their own bedding and towels. They had to agree to the property's previous requirements that prohibit them from using Ouija boards during their stay or carrying already haunted objects into the house. And absolutely no rituals of any kind, as her website warned. No opening or closing portals, no exceptions.
Let's get to the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Because we all had to go through quarantine measures.
I remember this. We tried to sign up. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, really what it boils down to is, yes, we all know it sucked. We were all locked down, most of us, you know, unless you were, you know, essential.
Yeah.
But some of the things that they put in the article here that I thought were worth talking about. One of the things is that the amount of activity that they would normally get in places went to like almost nothing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is there's lack of energy to feed off of. So if you're say, for example, a ghost or something like that, and you're using energy that comes off the people, thriving off that energy, feeding off that energy of people investigating all that, you know, sort of excitement, fear, anxiety, whatever energy it is, and it doesn't exist, you have a tendency to become way less strong.
Yeah. And if,
in other words, weak.
If the haunted bed and breakfast that you haunt is only allowed to have 5 guests for the whole weekend,
yeah,
you're not
getting the horsepower, the juice to be able to do things. And I thought it was kind of interesting because we did a couple investigations at a place that we normally go to because it's convenient and the people are nice and we like them and it's fun. And the energy was like nothing.
Yeah.
And we actually talked about that. You know, I mean, hey, it makes sense that these things would basically thrive off of and, you know, ingest, if you will, or recharge themselves with the energy of the people that are there. And it doesn't happen. And we actually talked about, I wonder what happens to these places where this lack of energy, if like spirits just don't go there anymore, or maybe they get so weak they can't. You know, in other words, like haunted places just stop being haunted.
Yeah. Like, especially if it's a residual or something that draws energy.
Yeah, if it just isn't there and it doesn't happen, does it just go dormant or does it go away? Does it move on somewhere else if it has the possibility of doing it? I don't know. But this article kind of brings it up and it talks about, you know, that in general. It also talks about how some the positive ghosts that are, you know, want to talk and tell the story and stuff and have a positive, you know, hey, they're all excited. But the negative side is that's there too, where the negative things are angry now because they have no interaction. So it becomes a little bit of a thing. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. But also it's sort of even brought into, like some of the shows, right? Like Brian Kano, who we've seen, you know, on Travel Channel and all that kind of stuff. And he talks about going online and having to do a lot of stuff online.
Yeah.
And a lot of people doing it. That's what you were saying in the very beginning. A lot of investigators and stuff like that have gone online and, you know, they're using Zoom and everything else to interact. And they're, you know, sort of stepping it up a notch to be able to take place of what is not there anymore. In other words, going into conferences and going to events and doing the face-to-face and the meet and greet and the grip and grins with all the people that show up, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of weird. You know, the reason why this whole thing struck me as kind of weird is because everybody we know and places we've gone, a lot of these guys that do this, I'm using guys to encompass everybody.
Yeah.
Enjoy at least going to some of these conferences and actually interacting with the people.
Yeah.
You know, and they may not like it, you know, if they're on tour, because some of these guys do tours and stuff, you know, 4 weeks, 5 weeks in, you just burn out and tired. But a lot of them like to be there and interact with people and talk to people and share stories and all that stuff.
And also get leads.
Yeah, get leads and find places to go, get invited to go investigate and, you know, hang out with people and stuff like that. And all that's gone, right? And so you have to do it online, and trying to interact with people when you're normally used to being a face-to-face sort of, you know, human flesh kind of experience can be pretty difficult.
And there's like this quote that Brian has in this article that kind of made me wonder, I don't know, from some perspectives, like, yes, he's right, but also I would disagree a little bit. And it was, this past year has been quite a challenge, but not one that we're ill-suited for in the paranormal. We operate on weird hours and in areas that aren't always filled by a lot of people. So social distancing and things of that sort kind of are our bread and butter anyway. As far as investigations go, the spirit world doesn't have to deal with these problems or worry about COVID. The living do, and we had to alter the way we do things. So towards the end there, he kind of gets at what I'm getting at, which is with a lot of the stuff that happened last year, where like some places had curfews. Yeah. Some places, it wasn't just like social distancing. It was like a number count. Like you could only have 5 people in some buildings in some places. And if you're going to a haunted location that's like a haunted bar or a haunted bed and breakfast or a haunted museum, the staff that have to be there because guests are there, that already cuts into some of those numbers.
Yeah.
We looked at one place where they were offering socially distanced investigations here in North Carolina, and it was like you could only bring a team of 4 because they had to have at least 5 staff on hand.
Yeah.
And that was like half their staff. So, I mean, that's like 9 or 10 people in the building, and
half of them aren't even investigators, you know.
And then half,
which, you know, makes it harder, because if you don't know this, if you're listening to the podcast and you don't know this, a lot of places will let you go investigate, but you're going to pay.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these places aren't for free necessarily. You know, a lot of them that, you know, it's their bread and butter, like the beginning of the article with that lady,
the Bel Air House,
Christian or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to pay. You're going to pay whatever it winds up being. If they want $500 for the night for you to go and do investigations and sign a little contract saying you won't break stuff and do all that kind of weird junk.
Yeah.
And if you got like 8 people, it's much easier to split the cost with 8 people than it is with 4. So, and plus at the time, it's like everybody's kind of watching money and, you know, not really knowing what's going on. So it's kind of a weird thing. And one of the things I thought was pretty interesting that came out from this article, and I will say it's a Vice article, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's Vice, you know. So anyway, was that there's a lot more interaction that seems to be happening now, because people will send like video evidence and images and things like that to investigators and stuff that have an open door for that sort of thing. Primarily because since they're spending so much time at home, there's a whole lot of home security footage that magically has become real popular.
But I would say even before last year, I mean, we did have people like when they saw the sign on our van or you were talking to them, they'd be like, hey, look at this picture. And they would send it to us, you know?
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying that, you know, as something that was probably not nearly as popular in the past, but since everybody is being online for a lot of this stuff, it's become more commonplace and accepted, really.
I mean, we used to always ask for it. I guess the paranormal community had to start learning to ask for it up front.
Yeah, well, I think it's been a learning curve for a lot of people, because a lot of people, you know, just did like strictly whatever, and they didn't really learn the whole teleconferencing side of things and all that. I mean, we had conversations that was basically us yelling out the van at people that are about 10 feet away because they're trying to maintain social distancing and all that. We're yelling ghost stuff back and forth at each other in the, you know, parking lot. It happened the other day, as a matter of fact. You went into this place that shall not be named.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the van updating apps and stuff because we don't really have good internet service where we have. So, you know, you got to pick your cell phone service while you can, kind of a thing. And they come up and start yelling at me. And at first I ignored them because I'm, not looking at them because I'm busy doing my thing. And then I realized that they were yelling at me, and they weren't actually yelling. They were just trying to get my attention. So I rolled down the window and gave them the customary greeting of what? Because I didn't hear what they were saying. Yeah. So I said, what? And then we started talking about ghost stuff.
Huh.
And of course it was like, you'll never believe what's going on in my house right now. And I'm like, well, tell me. And then 5 minutes later, I realized they still hadn't told me anything. And I'm like, okay, so let me ask you a series of questions here so I can make sure I'm on the same page. And they had like footsteps and voices and things like that. So I thought it was pretty interesting. But
I think it's funny that we're not really, not really in the industry anymore, but we still have to ask like tech, like probing questions.
Well, so I go back to the fortune cookies. It's up to you to clarify. So what I did was, and here's what I realized. It wasn't that they didn't have an interesting story. How do you go up to a stranger, right?
Yeah.
And basically tell them about something that could be kind of personal? I mean, how do you go up to somebody and go, hey, man, how's it going? Let me tell you about the weird stuff that's going on in my house. And how do you do it in a way where you're calm, cool, and collected, right? And don't come across as being an out-of-breath sort of weirdo because you're just so excited to talk to somebody about it. It's really hard,
Yeah.
And so, once I kind of got them on track and said, well, let me ask you some questions and stuff. And it came down to the very end where I do this with everybody. I give them a card. And it's a sweet, sweet card. And say, if you're serious, call us, we'll show up.
Yeah.
And then my next sentence is, and it's free. Because, people are like, I don't know how much this costs. How much is Ghostbusters? You guys going to come out there? And it's like, hey, we're not promising to do anything at all. We're going to come up and see what you got. But at the same time, though, I'd like you to know that's not going to cost you anything. Now, we do work for pizza, if that's an option. Because a lot of people we've heard the stories where people are like, hey, we try to have somebody come out and they wanted like $500. And it's like, were they flying from another part of the country or something? Or what's the deal, Because I could kind of see that if you're inviting somebody out to be an investigator or stuff, a lot of these people, 90% of the investigators this is not their full-time gig.
No.
They ain't got no money to be jumping on a plane to fly from Alaska to wherever to come investigate your stuff. So, it's a weird thing, but I just thought it was kind of funny. So the article talks about how COVID has affected all the paranormal stuff that's going on and how paranormal investigators have changed tactics to be able to sort of facilitate, the idea that it's not COVID, it's the life in COVID.
Yeah.
Like what you have to do differently and stuff. And now this article is new, but at the same time, in a couple of weeks, it may be outdated. If you got people getting all these vaccinations and stuff and, things are going to start opening back up again, it's definitely going to change things. But there is one part of this article I do want to point out where they talk about these groups, like, we try to debunk first approach. So what? Everybody does that, right?
Everybody should.
Yeah. That should be commonplace.
Yeah.
You shouldn't put that out there that like that's some kind of like big banner thing that separates you from everybody. I would think that would be ingrained in how this is done. But again, sometimes that may be seen as being a little irrational because that's the first thing we do.
Yeah.
Because I look at it like this. Wouldn't you want to know that you're not being, attacked by demons in your house if your heating and AC is acting stupid?
Yeah. And
wouldn't that make you feel better?
Wouldn't it save time to know that there might be some sort of legitimate safety concern in your household, like electrical, instead of a poltergeist messing with your lights?
Yeah. Which one is more likely, right?
Or maybe it's carbon monoxide poisoning and not a demon, that type of stuff.
Yeah, maybe you got radon poisoning going on. Maybe you should get that checked out. Because one of the things that we bring and have brought because we simply have it with us, and we haven't had to use it yet in the investigation, but I'm sure one day we will. And this is a little tip to these people out there trying to be cool with the investigations and do it themselves and stuff like that. It's our gift to you from the CreepGeeks Podcast. We bring a carbon monoxide detector. Yeah. It's in the van. We have it in the van so we don't kill ourselves with heating issues, right? But at the same time, I don't have a problem bringing that thing in the house and sitting it in there and seeing if those levels are high.
Yeah. And it just makes sense. I used to work with a girl.
It also does radon too. But.
Yeah. I used to work with a girl who, very rational, very down-to-earth girl. She had a bad couple days at work, and we were all like, what was going on? And she started saying some stuff that didn't really kind of concerned us.
Yeah.
She got a little paranoid.
People get a little weird.
She was gone for about 3 days, and she was gone for the weekend plus 3 days, and when she came back, it was like, oh, we found out we had carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm really glad I got my babies out as soon as we did, because
that's silent killing.
You know, so, I mean, that it makes everybody should be trying to debunk. Granted, they should be, you know, show empathy with the situation, listen to all the details, and then try to debunk the obvious.
Yeah. In a nice way.
Yeah. Now, there's a section in here that bugs me, but only because of what we go through. They talk about the FaceTiming and the Zooming to determine whether or not to investigate. And I don't know. I agree. You should always try to find some sort of arm's length way to interact with a client first. But then trying to conduct the whole thing or most of it via, you know, that type of platform, that teleconferencing thing, I kind of have a problem with. So,
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see you doing like an initial interview. I mean, if a doctor can diagnose you, like teledoc thing.
Yeah.
Sure. But at the same time, at some point, you got to go out there.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to carry around a laptop while I smudge your house? How does that work? You going to carry around a laptop while I investigate? I mean, I get what they're trying to say and how they do it and what the reason is behind it. But, you know, anytime you can be boots on the ground there, I think it's a better experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. If somebody's like, yeah, I'll come investigate, just make sure you got to get an internet signal and carry me around the house and laptop. I'm like, you know what? Never mind, man.
There's an episode of Sherlock like that.
Yeah. Well, there's episodes where, you know, there's an episode of Modern Family where Phil couldn't be somewhere for some event thing, so he's like a tablet on a little Segway stick.
Yeah.
Little run around like a robot.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty good. They locked him in a closet for a while, and anyway. Okay, so I think we're going to move on from that, but right now it's like everybody knows this, but I guess maybe not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Speaking of not knowing this, if you did not know, you will. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control, publishes a guide, right?
Yeah.
For preparing for a zombie apocalypse.
Oh.
I think this is useful. And maybe not because, you know, you're worried about zombies or whatever, but primarily because it's a good idea to plan, right?
Yeah.
So what do you need to do before zombies, hurricanes, or pandemics, for example? CDC's Preparedness 101 Zombie Apocalypse Guide reads, first of all, you should have an emergency kit in your house. So I think what they're actually doing here with this, right?
Yeah.
Is they're taking the idea of zombie apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
To make fun of a situation where you should be preparing for natural disasters and things like that. Because everybody sort of ignores it.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you have all your prescriptions and make sure your dog's prescriptions and your old people's. Make sure you bring your old people and your lawn furniture in when the storm's coming. You know, all that kind of stuff that you hear all the time. I think people stop listening, right?
Yeah.
But if they make it fun and talk about zombie apocalypse, you would be probably not surprised to find that a lot of the stuff that you would do for a regular disaster event, it would be the same thing you would do for a zombie apocalypse.
I mean, everything in this article reads just like the guides for preparing for a hurricane in Virginia.
So you replace zombie apocalypse with hurricane, and you're like, I don't care about reading about hurricane stuff. But if you put zombie apocalypse,
you know, I decided to fact check this article because the one thing that bugged me was there was no link to the CDC article.
Right.
So I went ahead and found it.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted like a manual that I could download, like PDF. It has like zombies and crap on it, but I could not find that. So it's a guide, but it's not like you can download a pamphlet.
Yeah.
Or something, so I thought it'd be kind of cool.
Oh.
But this is important, though. This one thing I want to talk about real quick and should be sort of considered.
Okay.
Whether it's zombie apocalypse or natural disasters or whatever. And some of you need to hear this. Although hygiene is likely to be the last thing on anyone's mind during a zombie apocalypse, we've all seen how dirty Daryl Dixon gets on The Walking Dead. The CDC Zombie Survival Guide says to stock up on household bleach, soap, towels, and other sanitation and hygiene-related products.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Keep it clean.
Yeah. get clean.
Yeah.
And this is from we found this CDC article thing from Anomaly. How do you say it? Anomalalian? I still don't know how to pronounce it. Anomalalian.
Yeah.
Anomalalian?
And
I feel like that chick from TikTok where she's trying to say...
Every time you pronounce it, you mess me up as I'm about to...
she's trying to say the birds were chirping, and she says churds were burping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I laughed.
Anomalalian.
Anomalalian.
Yeah.
Anomalalian?
No, that's too many M's and L's.
So anyway, we have a link to that, and then from there you can kind of read more about the CDC. But I thought the hygiene thing was important, so the next time you're preparing for zombie apocalypse, hurricane, or whatever, throw some soap in there, stinkies.
Yeah.
Because some people get a little ripe after a while. Actually, we all get a little ripe after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, there we go. You hear that, Pepper? Pepper's not enthused. She's not. She's turning her back to me. Don't you turn your back to me. Okay, so moving back into the podcast.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny that they would do a zombie apocalypse guide. Mm-hmm. And then what do I find? Zombie genes.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is not like mom genes, but they're talking about these genes, right?
Yeah.
Because this article I thought was really cool. It basically says that when you die, you're not dead. After you die, zombie genes in your brain come to life.
And what do they do?
I don't know.
Okay.
Exactly. Because they don't know exactly. But this is how the zombie apocalypse actually starts. They start doing research, right? So-called zombie genes are switched on after your brain dies.
Okay.
These are glial genes responsible for taking care of damaged brain tissue. And researchers studied samples from patients' brain surgeries. And it says, here's some fun news. After you die, you're not completely dead. So scientists from the University of Illinois in Chicago reveal that some genes express more activity in the human brain after death. And so how do these zombie genes still hang around exactly? The answer is a combination of common sense and surprise.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, like I know about it. So in order to study the post-mortem brain, so researchers collected some brain tissue samples from brain surgery patients. And this is in scientific reports where they wrote, compared to a number of neuropsychiatric disease-associated post-mortem transchromes, it's like, well, just English, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fresh human brain sample had an entirely unique transcriptional pattern. To understand this difference, we measured the genome-wide transcription as a function of time after the fresh tissue was removed to mimic the post-mortem interval. So in other words, they took a piece and let it sit out for a while.
Okay.
And then it says the scientists says they were motivated by trying to close the gap between doing research of the studies of the brain issues and the living human brains that they eventually wanted to treat. So research in animal models that aim to understand the fundamental disease processes and develop new treatments for human disorders often fail to translate. In other words, a lot of times the brains that you're looking at aren't related or close enough to the brains that you want to treat. Like human brain, rat brain, right?
Okay.
So they kind of go through and they talk about it. They said that they basically found that 427 genes could be clustered. And that one cluster of 317 rapidly declining genes was predicted to be neuronal and strongly overlap with the activity-dependent genes. And a second cluster of 474 genes was predicted to be glial. And this is remarkably, as the neuronal cell cluster rapidly fell, there was a reciprocal and dramatic increase in the expression of the glial cell cluster.
Okay.
So in other words, when one grouping, right, or one cluster of genes started to die, the other cluster of genes started to become alive and awake.
But that whole process, kind of like this sentence a little further down, in a way, the glial genes represent a cleanup crew that's only activated after a messy incident like brain surgery or death. And I remember learning this in biology, like in high school, that once the human body or animal body or what have you, once it passes away or is deceased, certain things go and still continue to grow and function. And that's to complete part of the death process. Like your fingernails grow out, your hair continues to exhaust itself, your hair follicles continue to exhaust themselves, and that's so that the body will break down quicker.
That's what they say.
Yeah. So I would think that some of these glial cells or whatever are turning the rest of the brain into mush, maybe.
Yeah, but see, that's not what they're saying, though.
Okay.
So, what they're saying is that while 80% of the genes stayed stable over time, the neuronal and the glial genes represented about 20%. So, the glial or zombie genes peaked their increased activity for about 12 hours on average after death. So what this is saying is that these zombie genes, right, these zombie brain cell genes are trying to fix the problem. And if it can get the problem fixed, then what happens, right? So it's just a sub-process in the process.
But they never do.
Well, that's their jobs.
But they never fix it.
So, right, they don't get it done because the body is too far dead for it to come back. But what if some of these scientists got together and found a way to increase the length of that process from 12 hours, maybe 24 hours, and maybe if it's, long enough and the process is one that could sort of maybe take that tissue and sort of animate it, right, and bring the brain back in a way that the brain can support itself. You know what you got after that, right?
A sentient brain?
You have a zombie.
No.
Yep.
No.
I'm reading it right here.
No.
This is from popularmechanics.com.
Even if you have found a way to extend that process, you still have to concern yourself with the rest of the nervous system. The nervous system starts to die off. Parts of the nerves start to die off. You have the whole body itself, which is being deprived of oxygen during that past that 12 hours, because that whole rigor mortis thing and things like that.
Well, I'm sure it takes a long time to rot away, as all the zombies that are walking around with limbs and stuff falling off will attest.
No.
This is how it goes. Okay, so there you go. When you die, you're not really dead. Your brain cells, you got those little worker brain cells trying to take care of business and fix some things. So what happens? Maybe a little influence? Zombies.
No.
And then you can refer to the CDC zombie apocalypse guy where they'll probably have some asterisks and add some stuff in there.
Like buy soap.
Like don't get bit. Use some bleach. Headshots.
Okay.
That kind of thing. I thought that was nice. So speaking of nice, treasure hunters. We all talk about treasure hunters.
Yeah.
Gold hunters, Finn's treasure, just treasure in general. For a while, we talked about pirate ships and stuff like that. So in the podcast in the past, we've talked about treasures. Yeah. Nazi gold trains, stuff like that. Well, there's some treasure hunters that are basically pressing the FBI for some answers, and this is on a suspicious Pennsylvania dig. And this was in March. This was March 10th. And basically, when you see treasure hunters, FBI for answers, suspicious dig, I'm in.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of verbose, but we're going to kind of go through it a little bit. So, what had happened was, there is a group, let's just say, not really a group, but there's a father and son treasure hunting team, and the federal government, right, looking to kind of get this Civil War gold. So the father and son team are looking for this treasure.
Yeah.
Evidently, somehow or another, the FBI got involved.
Huh.
And the gold is gone. And so the father and son team want the FBI to answer, like, what were you doing in this spot? Because here's where it gets kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So the FBI, well, let's do this. So and this is their argument. It's like, hey, we were going to go here and dig because we found some information that made us think that this particular area is the place where this lost Civil War gold is.
Yeah.
And so when they went to go back to find it or to dig it up, some FBI federal agents unexpectedly descended upon a Pennsylvania state forest to excavate a spot where Dennis and Kim Parada believe that that's where the gold was. In other words, they're like, this is where the gold is. But the FBI swooped in there and you're given a specificity. How do you say that?
Specific.
What?
Specific
Specificity.
Okay.
I don't know. Given a specific area where they were talking about where the gold may be, and specifically that's where the FBI was digging, they're like, hold on a minute. Mm-hmm. So it was widely assumed that they were looking for the lost treasure, but the federal government only said at the time that they were investigating a cultural heritage site.
Which is out of the jurisdiction of the FBI.
What?
That would
the hell you say?
That would be under the jurisdiction, depending on what it was.
Well, here's what they say. Claiming to have been promised access to the site as the excavation unfolded, the Paradas later expressed misgivings about the whole affair because authorities kept them from observing the project, and once it was completed, told them that nothing was found at the spot. So in other words, once these guys tried to do the right thing and get in there and do what they had to do, the FBI shows up, says cultural heritage site, we got to do the project here and figure it all out. And then magically, when there's nothing there anymore, they're like, well, we didn't find nothing. Come on in, guys. And it's gone. Right?
Yeah. I'm so annoyed right now because...
Yes, this is why I put this in here.
Yeah. Because I actually had to learn about this through the Albuquerque Gem and Rock Club.
Yes.
If I ever stumbled upon anything that was of historic value, there were certain processes you had to go through.
Yes.
If it was native, you had to go immediately to certain native organizations. You had to alert local tribal officials, and each one had a point of contact. If you were in a state park, you had to contact state authorities, and they in turn would usually reach out to state-based universities' anthropology and archaeology departments.
Yes.
If it was a national forest or cultural site, the Department of Interior is the point of contact, as well as a couple other ones. The FBI is usually like the 10th person on the list to call.
Yes.
So that's why I'm like, that's not right.
So, yeah. Okay, so ever since that happened, right, the treasure hunters have been on a different kind of quest. It's a litigious search for proof that the federal government is not being honest about the dig and in the fact that they had recovered lost gold.
Yeah.
Now, it goes on to further say that the story had reached something of a tipping point later this week when it was revealed that an attorney representing the Paradas had, by way of court order, obtained emails from the FBI concerning the 2018 event, and in one of those missives was marked confidential. An assistant U.S. attorney wrote to an official in Pennsylvania that the FBI was looking for cash believed to be in the neighborhood of 3 by 5 by 8 in feet to 5 by 5 by 8, and further confirming that the nature of the dig, and through another exchange between the two, right, the state official officially asked, on what basis is the Office of the United States Attorney asserts that the gold, if found, belongs to the federal government? So by virtue of those newly obtained documents, it would seem that the FBI's vague claim that they were simply looking into a cultural heritage site had been upended. Additionally, in light of how the secretive federal government has been when it took place in the Pennsylvania forest back in 2018, the treasure hunters' suspicions are that perhaps the gold was actually found and the discovery was kept from the public, right? Mm-hmm. To make it appear more plausible that some of them, may have been, previously let on.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to say is that if they're just looking, they're looking pretty specifically for something, right? And
who tipped them off?
Well, I don't know.
And who tipped them off with that specific location?
So the treasure hunter's attorney indicated that they no longer believe that the treasure is located in that Pennsylvania state park, and instead the truth about its fate may be metaphorically buried somewhere in a sea of paperwork held by the federal government. As such, he has called on the Department of Justice to release a whopping 2,400 documents concerning the dig, which remains sealed. And it says significant tax dollars were spent on this venture, and the public has a right to know how those dollars were spent. So for their part, a spokesperson for the FBI said that the agency unequivocally rejects any claims or speculation that the dig yielded any treasure, suggesting that this epic hunt is a long way from over.
So I'm still hung up on how the FBI even got involved in the first place.
I don't know.
Because, yes, I could understand the DOJ, I could understand Department of Interior, whoever's in charge of national parks, national monuments, if this was a culturally historic site of importance, I can understand those parties. Heck, if it was like
I think
after
they were
the Civil
using.
War,
I think they were using the idea that it's a cultural heritage site to give the FBI the federal government the ability to step in there and dig around.
yeah.
And then they were like, "Oh, we didn't find nothing, guys."
I don't know.
So you know what I think?
Yeah.
I think they got that gold.
Well, yeah, I do. So something's not right about not just the gold, but the process. I mean, if they had gone about it a different way,
are you surprised?
They'd be completely transparent. This is ours, Same way with like when.
But they don't want the public to know.
Yeah.
I mean, the government has continued to be pretty secretive about things like this. Whether it's the giant remains being snatched up by Smithsonian.
Yeah.
The secret pyramids and pharaohs and Egyptian stuff that's in the Grand Canyon, a place that you can't get to anymore, including a hidden city, all blocked off by the government. There's you hear lots of stories like that the government basically has things they don't want you to know. Even the White Sands missile testing range,
yeah,
where it has grown exponentially, and part of that they say was not only because the missiles will go further now, but that they found that lost city of gold or the lost gold cache from whatever that guy's Spanish guy he had. I can't think of his name now. It's going to drop. Remember, he had like he had a large cache of gold that he basically took from natives and all this stuff.
Coronado?
What? No, in New Mexico, not Coronado. Coronado was like Florida. Anyway, well, don't you wave your eyebrows at me like I'll show you. But no, it was in New Mexico where it came up from. Remember, it was like the lost. Somehow or another, it's strangely related to Frog Ranch with the gold that they were looking for. It's the same dude, but somehow or another, when he got into the White Sands missile testing range, which has grown over time. Remember, we heard the story a long time ago where these military people found a tunnel and they were going through the tunnel and they found like huge racks and stacks of gold. And it was, remember, this was like a whole thing. It's like, I want to say it starts with a V. The guy is like a mine, it was a lost mine, but it was full of like stolen gold.
Francisco Vasquez de Coronado on the banks of the Rio Grande.
Yeah, not the same Coronado that was looking for something in Florida.
Coronado exploited the people of the Tiwa Pueblo and Qua, made it to El Moro, some other stuff.
Which is part of the White Sands missile testing range, allegedly.
Yep. There were markings of his different groups of explorers all the way through Carlsbad Caverns. Carlsbad Caverns had caches in it.
Yes.
So...
And allegedly, you remember when the town shut down outside the White Sands missile testing range?
Yeah.
And nobody knew why, and they were like, it was deserted.
Yeah.
There was a theory that they basically shut everything down to be able to get that gold out of there.
And there was Onate. He was a bad dude.
Yeah,
so,
but anyway,
yeah,
kind of like that. So the government has a history of doing this sort of thing. And you can't really prove any of it. That's the whole thing. So they can easily sit there and go, no. Look at Project Blue Book. They investigate to basically, the theory is that all the Project Blue Book stuff, is to go out and take, stories and investigate people's UFO reports. When really most of it was a way to basically spread disinformation. Who knows? So anyway, the treasure hunters basically they're looking for answers, and they got a lawyer. It's litigious now. So we got to see what's up. What? And I'm sure there's more than one Coronado.
The Mexican millionaire cache is somewhere between Shiprock and the Mesa Verde National Park. $30 million in gold bullion.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's one of them. There's multiples.
Yeah.
But remember, we talked about the Vasquez story and the Vasquez gold. One guy allegedly found it, came back, had a partner shot him dead. It was a whole thing. It was like a whole series. And it was even basically on, I think, Mysterious Universe did a really good job of investigating. And by investigating, I mean reading all about it and telling us about it out of a book, which is, hey, that's fine. You want to do it? Because I was really interested in it, about the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So I thought that was kind of cool. What say you?
Oh, are you thinking the Lost Dutchman?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
not the Lost. That's what the Frog Ranch was.
Coronado is...
Isn't he associated with that too?
I don't know.
I think so. Well, for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to say they are because we don't know. It could be... See, I don't know, because the Lost Dutchman mine, there was not just... It was more than just... All this is going together. Pretty soon we're going to start talking about like Oak Island. And it was all found at Oak Island.
I pulled up a list of all the lost treasures in New Mexico.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
Lost giants, allegedly giants had
this
treasure
is like
too.
pertaining to gold.
You
So.
didn't let me finish where I said it was pertaining to treasure too. Like they were carrying golden spears. You hear about it? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, moving on there, guess what?
What?
So we talk about treasure hunters that are pressing the FBI for answers. And then remember the Finn treasure, the New Mexico dude, the artist?
Yeah.
They had his hidden treasure, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it got found?
Yeah.
It was like, I'm not going to tell you who it is. And it kind of became a thing. Well, evidently there's a Finn treasure hunter who was sentenced to 6 months in prison for Yellowstone Park dig.
Oh, yeah.
So he's digging around in there trying to find Forrest Finn's treasure.
We reported on when he got found guilty. I guess they finally sentenced him?
Yep. So a Utah man was busted for illegally digging at Yellowstone National Park in search of the treasure. So he did a bunch of holes, dug up a grave. He's going, and it shows a picture of like basically a hole dug next to a tree. This guy's going to jail for 6 months.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's all we're going to say about that. Sort of a follow-up. Okay, so now this is the point where we're going to take a quick break in the podcast, and we're going to come right back and talk to you about Mothman and Mothman's beans.
Yeah.
So you're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. We'll be right back. Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, the listeners of the CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/CheapGeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook. Enjoy this with your free trial. 30 days of membership free, plus 2 free audiobooks that are yours forever. 1 credit a month after trial, good for any book regardless of price. Exclusive member savings. Get 30% off additional audiobooks. Easy exchanges. Don't love a book? Swap it for free. Anytime, seriously. Again, that's audibletrial.com/CheapGeek for your free audiobook today. Mothman's beans. Okay, so this is a public service announcement. We have to talk about this, and we find that if you've been paying attention to the podcast and you're still hanging in with us, this is the best part.
Yep.
It's all about Mothman's beans. Audible is audio entertainment. Whoa, what's going on? Did you hear that? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to fix that.
Great.
Because I don't know why it did that. Because I have a new feature. You want to hear it?
Sure.
What the So I'm still figuring that out, everybody. So guess what? CreepGeeks Podcast has a, what do you call it? A bleep button.
Beep.
A beep button. You son of a... So, there you go.
So.
We've never had to use it, and honestly, I don't think we will because it's annoying. I thought it'd be a better bleep tone.
Yeah.
But the dog doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Well, maybe we should find one that we can use in place, like a trombone noise or something.
Now I got to do that air horn thing. Yeah, anyway, that would get annoying real quick. So tell us about Mothman's beans.
So this started popping up this weekend. There was a post by a guy named Dusty on Facebook, and out of nowhere, he posted, "I can't believe I have to keep saying this, but please stop leaving beans at the Mothman statue. My father-in-law is getting calls from the mayor and your donation to our local deity of another dimension's plane. Well, he would rather you give these beans to the homeless shelter just up the road in his honor. Y'all look after one another. Hashtag Mothman, hashtag Point Pleasant." And the picture he shares is of one of the cams that West Virginia, Point Pleasant, always has on the Mothman statue, and somebody has circled it with a circle of canned beans. And there are people walking away. There's some people looking at the beans going, what is going on.
Now, I have to say, I was not aware that this was a thing. So is this an April 1st, April Fool's Day thing?
No, it's not. Apparently, this only started recently happening. And there was a lot of speculation in the original thread, but one user did come down to what exactly was going on. This has been linked to, at first, people were thinking it was a TikTok trend. And if you go on TikTok, you may see people running up to the Mothman statue, poking at his booty, and then leaving a can of beans. However, there's more to it, and it turns out this links to one of Amazon's favorite controversial authors, Chuck Tingle.
Okay, so yeah, this guy has some amazing book titles, and they're not kid-friendly.
Yeah. So we'll just...
It's just like fan art. Remember how the senator was like busted for doing Bigfoot?
Fan fiction?
Fan pornography fiction?
Yeah. This is basically Chuck Tingle's whole shtick.
His whole thing.
Yes. He writes inappropriate novels of various sorts featuring amusing things. And in this case, it was Mothman. Now, the name of the title is By Mothman Mailman Makes a Special Delivery in Our Butts.
Oh, man, I should have bleeped that out, but you didn't really say anything.
Now, in the novel, at some point, Mothman, whose name is Indrid Cold,
for Injured Cold.
Yeah.
Injured Cold beans.
is served beans. And then there's a lot of passionate interactions with Mothman.
So the beans are the catalyst
Yes.
for the relationship of what's going on here.
One of many, as well as the people, the characters in the novel are getting deliveries of other Chuck Tingle novels by Mothman Mailman. So he shows up to this couple's house every few days with a delivery of a new Chuck Tingle novel, even more erotic than the previous title.
Nice.
And at one point, I guess they invite him to lunch to have some beans. Hence, the beans being a prank done by the TikTokers, and now it's being handed over to Facebook. What I find amusing is a lot of people have not quite made the connection yet to Mr. Chuck Tingle. And are just doing it for fun.
So this is like related to a fantasy porno book.
Erotic fan fiction.
There you go.
Yes. Of a parallel dimension.
So everybody thinks it's funny now. Wait till they find out they're just,
But
participating in the perv.
In this parallel dimension, Mothman is a mailman who gets handed off Amazon deliveries and eats beans. And they have Amazon in that parallel dimension.
It's just stupid.
It is ridiculous. And there's so many people who are sharing these photos of like Mothman with like three big cans of beans, like pork and beans, like stacked in front of him. And they're like, this is what's going on here. And it comes down to this horrible erotic author named Chuck Tingle. Now, we've provided a link to this novel that you can read on Kindle right now if you're a grown-up and can handle mature content.
Yes.
And you can also peruse many of his other hilarious titles.
Yeah, I think people are actually buying these because the titles are funny.
But they're kind of well written.
So it's well written garbage.
He even has his own choose your own adventure line.
I think some of the comments that are in the Facebook post are pretty funny. Like the very last one that I read says, I'm so happy that I read this was happening because of an erotic fan fiction first. Then I read further. This is absolutely the best thread I've seen on Facebook in years.
Yes.
And then somebody is like, and all the coins and rocks and ramps and medical cannabis containers, please. I cleaned it off yesterday and there were places all over the statue from rain and rust from the cans.
Yeah.
And then this person's like, you just need to build a bean box at this point.
That's true. That would be really useful.
Yeah, we need to have a Mothman food drive.
And
they come, they eat, they leave.
And you do need to check out on TikTok the Beans for Mothman thing. Apparently, the music to it really, quote unquote, slaps. So
nice.
Yeah.
I like this comment. Does he like beans and whiners or just beans? I think they meant wieners, but Yeah.
Y'all need to slap some labels on some Van Camps and sell the cans for $10.
Heck yeah. And, can you imagine the sea of beans await us during the festival? We might as well set up a staff member to stand there with a bag that says, just save us time and throw your beans in here. This person,
yeah,
I don't think knows that this is related to the erotic fan fiction thing.
And I also think,
yeah, I'm kind of thinking they actually are an integral part of the Mothman Museum. They should probably know this.
Oh, but I also appreciate how this is a growth and handoff to the younger and next generations.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people in this thread who are just like either annoyed or distraught, but then there's this whole younger generation just having fun with it and embracing it.
And not know why. Or not caring.
Well, some of them do. They do. Some of the younger generation, they do know why.
Well, maybe the younger generation does, but there's a large quantity of older generation that has no idea this is all based off of Prano.
Yeah. But, I mean, think of all the good. What if people did leave enough beans and canned goods there for the local food bank? That's great. Maybe I should have a Bigfoot food drive, here in Marion. That'd be a great idea.
Maybe.
But
I mean, you could probably try to do something like that, but guaranteed, whenever somebody tries to do something good, there's going to be 1 million people basically trying to trash you over it.
I know.
Because they'll think that you're trying to take away an idea from somebody else. Somebody who hasn't verbally put that idea out there or done anything at all to let anybody in the rest of the world knows that they actually had the idea.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. They're like, you were just, to those people, I always like to do the same thing. Hey, thanks for commenting. I appreciate it. And just leave it at that. Trolls. Look, and feed them beans.
But, I mean, the people are upset with that.
Right now, Omi, somebody is taking Great Northern beans, which are the essential pork and bean.
Yeah.
And is trying to come up with a secret Mothman blend so that they can hopefully get into the festival and get it in there so that they can sell their own Mothman brand beans.
Oh.
Yeah. And they're probably trying to figure out a way that they can get a Chinese drop seller to ship them labeled beans so that they can sell them. Product of China.
See, and I'm only looking at all the
That's
good.
Gonna happen.
The good that could happen from this, and how the younger generation encourages that. I mean, these are... If this became like as crazy as the Mothman Festival is itself, all that canned food would be great.
Has there ever been any kind of numbers of actually how many people really went to the Mothman Festival? Because, okay, so we've been there, we've seen, the streets and where that would happen and all that stuff. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know if the Mothman Festival was as big as everybody tries to say it really is. I know right now people, if you're still listening to podcasts, are like bristling up like you're ready to fight. I'll see you in the backyard.
Well, we had that one-off here, the Spruce Pine Alien Expo.
Over 14,000 people showed. It was like a one-day thing.
Yeah, and that town is as small or smaller than Point Pleasant.
Yeah, well, it for sure is smaller.
Yeah, and it's a similar layout. It's that one street, and it's small, and 14,000 people. I mean, that was crazy.
It's a tiny street. It's not even, that street was like a block long.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that big. And there was at one point they said there was over 17,000 people cruising through there.
Yeah. Now the same thing though.
I really think it's more like 1,700, but it's kind of hard to say.
But we keep hearing the same thing about the Bigfoot festivals too. So it's like, maybe the numbers are just being calculated a certain way by the Chamber of Commerce for these different small towns.
I can't see it being, that, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. But we probably won't because there's the Marion Bigfoot Festival is going to be happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And we're committed to doing that one.
And we're, we try to get into the ones that we can get into.
Yep. I don't know. So, somebody's going to come up to me and say something about this. And you know what's going to happen? You know what happens?
What?
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's all good. But there you go. You probably shouldn't be bringing beans there. If you do, you probably don't want to put them on the statue. I mean, that's the one thing out of all this. And granted, this has sort of become popular because of some adult erotic fan fiction stuff. But I can kind of see if you're leaving beans, like, there's steel cans of beans on it, it's going to create rust and stuff. I don't know. Don't put them there. Put them in front or something. Don't put them on the statue. I mean, that's the kind of thing that it kind of annoys me. It's kind of funny. It's sort of a weird reason to be doing all this stuff. People are having a good time with it. But the idea that it could be kind of causing, damage, maybe not damage, but
kind of like all the people putting their hands on Mothman's booty and now it's tarnished. So now somebody has to specifically polish his booty.
You know what? Yeah. Okay. So it's funny you bring it up, but this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
When I was in the Navy, I did a lot of travel, went all over the world, and there are bronze statues that are completely green.
Yeah.
Right? And that just happens over time. It's a natural patina. There are other bronze statues of the same age that are not. They look bronze. In other words, from people touching them every day or whatever, they don't have the opportunity to be completely green.
Oh. You mean the ones that the pigeons land all over and stuff?
Okay, so like in Trafalgar Square, they have these big lions and stuff, and people get up there and they touch the lions.
Oh, okay.
But they're not all green, they're okay, so where people have been, the ones that are touched more, they don't seem to tarnish as much.
Okay.
So, but you could see there's certain statues where there's, where they've been touched. Like one statue in Norway is of an older man, and he's holding his hand out like he's trying to hold your hand. It's like Grandpa.
Yeah.
And the hand is super shiny because everybody goes up and grabs his hand and gets their picture taken.
Yeah.
I think it's Hans Christian Andersen, actually. I think I might be wrong.
So bad.
Well, a lot of places I've gone, like Norway and Denmark and all that stuff, all sort of roll together. But I think it might be Hans. Anyway, his hand is like polished almost because every day, people come up and they grab and take a picture with his hand. And the rest of the statue is kind of dull and dingy.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was kind of weird.
Huh.
So there you go.
Oh, I'm looking at that statue that you're talking about. Oh, I see it.
There's a bunch of statues like that. Just something. But yeah, I don't know.
So how do we feel about this Mothman beans thing?
I think it's funny, but I can just see that over time, I think it might cause some damage to the statue.
I mean,
because everybody does it. There's also a trend where people are going up and poking Mothman in the butt. I'm sure that's been around for a long time, but I don't know. When we go to these places and we take pictures and stuff like that, we never really touch or do anything like that.
Like,
because it's kind of, to me, it's an art, right? Yeah.
I look at it the same way. Like when we went, I really wanted to make like a Mothman joke because everybody talks about how well defined he is, and what instantly kicked in was that elementary school field trip, don't touch the statue mentality. I was like, oh, I can't. I really wanted to touch his wings, but I didn't because I was raised a certain way.
Yeah, it's art. You don't mess with, art. It's there. Yeah. I mean, you probably could have. I mean, you could have canned beans up there or poke him in the butt. I'm probably sure.
Luckily, most of the bean photos, they're making a circle around the statue, so they're not putting it on the actual monument.
Yeah, but people do leave stuff there.
Yeah. So,
and another place, now that I think about it, it has the bronze that's been kind of polished by touch.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what I was trying to say, polished by touch.
Yeah.
Is in Virginia Beach, you have Neptune.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Neptune or Poseidon? Anyway, King Neptune down at the beach where he's got like sea turtles and stuff like that, and he's got, he's really cool looking. People that touch the sea turtles, and then when they touch parts of this, it's been polished by touch.
Yeah.
There you go. You should write that down. Polished by touch. So.
Well, I think you were talking about people leaving other stuff. The first thing I thought of was, not last winter, the winter before that, people were wrapping scarves and hats around the Marion Bigfoot statue and getting in trouble for it.
Well, you know why, right? It's art. What if it causes damage?
Yeah. So. Well,
they did the same thing with Mothman. Every year you see him with one time he had a mask on for a while, and then he had a scarf and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it looks like it's a pretty sturdy thing, but eventually somebody's going to do something dumb and try to hang off of it, and it's going to get damaged, and there's going to be an end to that. So, That being said, if you're going to go see the Mothman statue and get your picture taken and stuff like that, maybe treat it with some kind of respect, because it looks like whatever it costs to make this is up there. It looks like it's kind of expensive, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Treat art nicely, I guess. We put no beans on there. Joe beans, moth beans. Hey, everybody, you should get some of our Mothman beans. We should do that.
No.
I'm sure there's going to be pictures of somebody's like put like a Sharpie and marked out like Van Camps or something and puts like Mothman. Mothman brand. All right. So anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and at this point take up a couple more seconds of your time before we wrap up the podcast and wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. I'm done. That's it.
Everyone, we want to thank you for tuning into the podcast and listening. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast or leave us a comment on social media. We are all over Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for CreepGeeks Podcast. You'll find us. Otherwise, links are in the show notes for every episode. If you have feedback or anything like that, contact at creepgeeks.com or 575-208-4025. We do want to thank our Patreon supporters for helping us with these podcast episodes. If you'd like to support us as well, that's going to be patreon.com/creepgeeks. Other way you can support us, check out our official Cheap Geek and Creep Geeks Amazon affiliate page. That's also in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So anyway, there you go. You know what though? If for some reason the Marion Bigfoot Festival, or whatever, is it festival or it's festival?
Yeah.
If that does get conference, I cannot talk. If that gets canceled, we may have to take a road trip.
Yeah. Oh, it's
down into West Virginia land.
For our listeners, well, we are currently in Western North Carolina, and we call it the Marion Bigfoot Festival. If you are on social media, please look for WNC Bigfoot Festival, and that's how you'll find it.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's the Marion Bigfoot Festival. Doesn't matter, they're trying to call it Western North Carolina. Trying to give it some kind of international twang. So, I don't know. We went. It was good.
Yeah.
Come down and check it out. There's lots of Bigfoot stuff. But, hey, it is what it is. So, yeah, that's all we got to say about that. So, anyway, thanks for listening. See us again. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.